What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Chad Daybell's trial. We are going to break down day 20, where we have connections made by the DNA. Who did they test for? What did they find? What connections were made? And what holes is John Pryor going to poke? And then we're also going to discuss how Chad and Lori were caught red-handed living their best life in Hawaii, and how that probably looks to a jury at a time like this and circumstances like they were at the time they were found. So thanks for joining me. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to our page. Let's get into this video. So while we are going to start with the DNA connections with the DNA expert up on the stand, I'm not going to go into detail about how they found the remains and how they connected the DNA. And it was positive that it was, Tylee and JJ, and how they confirmed it's gruesome, gory, sad. They did what they needed to do as the state in that situation. But one of the big pieces of DNA connection that was made to Lori Vallow that we heard about for her trial, we get to see it a little bit better. We get to see the report, hear the expert discuss it, even though it's not a report she did. So that's what we're going to start with. And then John Pryor took some obvious shots on cross that he was going to take. But we'll see if they're starting to lose their luster and lose their sting here as we continue to hear the same thing, that the rest of the evidence, the rest of the story, the rest of the context just makes it so illogical that their arguments would be true. And instead, all of the evidence is really starting to stack up to where pointing the finger at co-conspirators is less effective than it may have been early in the trial before we heard a lot of the evidence we've heard through 20 days so far. So let's jump into this expert explaining what they found, connecting the couple, Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell, to the deaths of JJ and Tylee.
If you could just briefly at the top here describe the item numbers that were sent.
S25, which is a DNA extraction of the known reference sample of Lori Vallow. B23, which is the DNA extraction sample for Tylee Ryan. And item 46, which appears to be the reference DNA extraction of Melanie Gibb.
So I did think it was kind of wild that they also were testing Melanie Gibb. They had DNA to match to Lori Vallow, to Tylee, and to Melanie Gibb. Very interesting to me.
And I'm going to point your attention to here what it says, STR processing results, conclusions, and statistics. Could you, and I will make that a little bigger for you. If you could just read that into the record.
DNA profiles were provided for the following samples: S25, Lori Vallow, Daybell; B23, Tylee Ryan; and 46, Melanie Gibb.
And if you'd read the next couple paragraphs there.
The partial DNA profile obtained from sample CCB2235-0241-E-01 is consistent with a female contributor, female 1. This partial DNA profile matches the DNA profile provided by Lori Vallow Daybell. The probability of randomly selecting an unrelated individual with this partial DNA profile is at least 1 in 71 billion in the US population.
I'm not going to ask you to read the rest of that. So this was, to your knowledge, a hair collected from black bags wrapped around JJ Vallow?
Yes, it is given the item number 11.16.8b. That is the piece of tape labeled number 8 by our laboratory, and that was one of the hairs from that tape.
Okay, so from the tape on black bags?
Yes.
Okay. And from your understanding of this report, they tested it against Tylee Ryan, Lori Vallow, and Melanie Gibb?
Correct.
And it matched for Lori Vallow?
Yes, as a partial DNA profile.
So the hair matches, at least to enough for a legal standard to put before the jury, Lori Vallow on the tape of the bags around JJ. Now, there are arguments Lori Vallow could make. It's her son. Obviously, if she's hugging him, hair gets everywhere. I happen to know how that works as a man with long hair. And so, yes, there are arguments there. And then, of course, Chad Daybell can argue it wasn't Chad Daybell's hair, which I'm sure we're going to hear later. But at the end of the day, I think that's incredibly damning, that it was not found just on JJ's body, but instead on the tape on the bags of his remains. So on cross, she talked about testing a bunch of the tools, pickaxe, shovels, things like that, all the connections where they were. We saw pictures of them in Chad Daybell's house, all the people that could have potentially touched them. But she's not the one that really talked about the fingerprints and things like that. She was more focused on DNA. That wasn't going to stop John Pryor from trying to use that to poke some holes. So let's listen to how he tried to poke holes in that part of her testimony.
What about the handles of all of those tools? Do Mr. Daybell's garage, correct?
From September to July, so almost a year. 10
10
months.
months.
Yeah.
I had to count with my fingers. Probably both of us did.
Yes.
Okay. And in the interim between September and July, well, actually before September, we don't know who had contact with those tools, do we?
No.
We don't know how that DNA got on those tools, do we?
I do not.
What we know is that they were found in Mr. Daybell's garage, correct?
That's correct.
So the presumption is that at least in part, being on Mr. Daybell's property, they may have been the ownership of Mr. Daybell, correct?
Yes.
And now on the 18 tools that you tested, how many of those had Mr. Daybell's DNA on them?
None of the stains or material I tested had Chad Daybell's DNA.
What about the handles of all of those tools? Did you find Mr. Daybell's DNA on any of the handles?
We did not swab the handles for DNA. We generally do not do that testing upfront when the ownership of the item is not in question.
But there's no,
So this kind of sounds like it might be good for the defense. They didn't find Daybell's DNA. They didn't swab the handles. Why would you not do that? Obviously, handles of these tools can be very important. A lot of people asking me this question via DMs. Please talk about this. Why would they not have tested the handles? It would have confirmed, Chad's DNA or fingerprints or whatever is on the handles. Yeah, that's true. It's a great point by all of you that sent me that. But it's obvious, and nobody was saying these weren't Chad's. They were all on his property. And it's an easy argument for the defense to say, yeah, he used these all the time. They're tools on his property. Of course he used them. So that DNA doesn't prove anything. So if it doesn't prove anything, why do it? Right? And that's really what she is continuing to say. And I think she did a really good job of sticking to that. She seems very smart. She didn't get tripped up by anything. But John Pryor is going to, of course, make it seem like, oh, you didn't even test him and you didn't find any of Chad's DNA. It's like, this really is a nothing burger. It doesn't prove or disprove anything the way that they did the testing, but that doesn't mean he's not going to try to make it sound like a big win for them. And we're going to continue to listen to a little bit of it.
certainty as to who handled those tools. Is that right?
No. And if they had been owned at the property for years prior to the crime, you would expect to find any of the family members' DNA on there through non-criminal means, such as buying the shovel, using the shovel in a different day. things like that.
Correct.
So in fact, if someone had owned those tools for some time, it would be your expectation that at least somewhere on the tools, you would have found Mr. Daybell's DNA. Would that be fair?
Yeah. Yes, it's fair.
And it doesn't necessarily mean the handle, the base or the shaft of the, you tested the shafts of these, obviously, correct?
I did not run those samples for DNA. I simply swabbed them for preservation.
Okay. And when you did that, at no time on the shafts of these handles or even on the blades of these handles, did you ever find any of Mr. Daybell's DNA? Is that correct?
I did not run those samples for DNA, but nothing I did run for DNA had Chad Daybell's DNA on it.
She's like, yeah, so I didn't run some of this for DNA. And he goes, so none of those showed Chad Daybell's DNA. It's like, oh yeah, they didn't show anybody's DNA because I didn't run them. But I think what you're looking for, Mr. Pryor, is nothing I ran for DNA had Chad Daybell on it. And again, that's good for him because he's pointing the finger at everybody else except for him. So when it comes to the DNA evidence, not a huge slam dunk for Chad Daybell, but for his co-conspirators, it was. And that's really what the state is focusing on, that he is part of this conspiracy. He is one of the co-conspirators. He is not the only person and the person that necessarily carried out each individual act, because they don't have to prove that.
I had swabbed them. Everyone that I had a reference sample would have been compared to those samples, but we did not swab them.
And you weren't asked to do that, is that right?
Correct.
All right, sorry, I got to back it up a little bit.
Fallen under the same swabbing of the handles.
What does that mean?
So as I mentioned, we did not receive a request for that. And then on at least one or more of the tools.
Sorry, I got to back it up a little bit more.
That you would expect to find Mr. Daybell's DNA on them, correct?
That's very reasonable. Yes.
Okay. Now, your investigation was targeted at that point to assume that you weren't going to test those handles, or at least the handle portions, because you would have already assumed that Mr. Daybell was on there. Is that correct?
Well, when they were requested for blood and human remains. In order to swab them, that would have been consumptive. And on at least one of the tools, there was also the possibility of getting latent prints. So you would want to make that decision before we just went ahead and swabbed it if you had wanted it, or if anyone had wanted a different testing
And
method.
at no point, nobody requested that they wanted that, correct? Did they request? And the request would have come from the police to you, is that right?
Yes, or the court.
Law enforcement?
Yes.
Okay. Or the prosecuting attorney?
Yes, or by court order.
By court order, okay. And in this situation, who was the one who provided you with the request to do this testing?
This would have been the police department investigating.
Okay. And at some point, you determined you weren't going to go further with DNA testing of the entire tools for Chad Daybell. Did you happen to get a request to test any and all of the tools for the possible DNA of Alex Cox?
That would have again fallen under the same swabbing of the handles.
What does that mean?
So basically, no, she's going to keep answering no. But what he's about to point out here, he's going to go through Cox and Melanie and David and how they didn't do in the testing for them. They should have, because these were actually the people that did it, not Chad Daybell. Didn't have any Chad Daybell's DNA, which proves he's innocent. But it also doesn't have their DNA, but all that proves is they didn't do the right investigation is what he's trying to argue here. So kind of like same fact, two different arguments on it, which you're allowed to do. But I that's what he's trying to do here is that they failed to investigate properly people they knew or should have known were involved in this.
So as I mentioned, we did not receive a request for that. And then on at least one or more of the tools, you would have had to make a decision whether or not you wanted handler DNA or potential latent prints because they would be looking at the same area.
But don't I understand that you didn't look for any DNA on the handles, isn't that correct?
Correct. Again, swabbing it on an item that maybe could have latents would destroy the latent print. So we were under some guidelines not to consume evidence during portions of the investigation. And so that decision was made not to potentially damage evidence.
And you're not aware, it's not your department to determine whether there were latent prints on the handles of these tools, right?
No.
That's a different department?
Correct.
So on one hand, your department looks for DNA, the other department looks for latent prints.
Yes, and we do work in concert, but there are some times, especially handles of items, where you might have to just choose one or the other.
But you chose neither on the handles with the DNA or the latent prints, right?
Correct.
And that goes for Alex Cox, correct?
Correct.
What about Melanie Gibb? Did you get any kind of authorization to test for either latent prints or DNA for Melanie Gibb on any of the tools?
No.
What about David Warwick? Did you test for latent prints or DNA on any of the tools for David Warwick?
No.
What about for Lori Vallow? Did you test for DNA or latent prints on any of the handles of the tools for Lori Vallow?
No, if I had swabbed them, everyone that I had a reference sample would have been compared to those samples, but we did not swab them.
She's like, I would have tested everything I had, but we didn't test those.
And you weren't asked to do that, is that right?
Correct.
Now, I want to touch a little bit about soil and DNA. Put on those tools.
All right, now we're going to skip ahead to
Just
the
very brief testing.
It means that in order,
Hawaii PD. I'm going to skip the redirect here. We're going to go to the Hawaii PD officer who comes, and he is the one that served the order to bring the kids back to Idaho, to Chad and Lori, and he has the body cam footage. And I want you to picture for a second, okay? Picture with me that you are a juror in this trial. You can close your eyes. I had somebody do this to me recently, like just put yourself there, close your eyes, and imagine hearing what you just heard about, if you guys watched the whole trial, about the remains of two children, how they were left, what happened to them throughout this trial, how everybody was acting like they didn't exist. I shouldn't say everybody, how Lori and Chad was acting like they didn't exist. And you're hearing all these people that are concerned about them, family members, friends, whatever it may be, how their other family members, either close or not close, pass away tragically, everything they had to go through, special needs, and what ended up happening with them at the hands of Lori Vallow and Alex Cox so far. And again, allegedly against Chad Daybell. So that's kind of what's in your mind. And you've heard stories about how Chad and Lori left. They bought rings. They were applying to rent houses saying no kids, no pets, no problems. And you're thinking about all that, and you've heard those things, but you can't really picture. They couldn't have really been acting like that. I'm sure something else must have been going on. I'm sure they were at least sad. Maybe they were all in a, dark room with people encircling the house with torches. And, it was some kind of weird cult like that. That's maybe what they're picturing in their head. It's not like they're, having a great time. It's like they're deep in it. They're brainwashed, whatever it may be. Maybe that's what they're thinking. But that's not the state's theory, and that's not the state's story. The state's theory and story is this is about money, sex, and power. Removing obstacles so they could go live their best life together. And Siri just started listening to me. That was weird. And when that's the state story, I find this piece of evidence to be huge. It can be very small. It can be overlooked. But to me, this body cam footage of Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow laying by the pool with Lori in her bikini, having the time of their life in Hawaii, it just speaks volumes. A picture's worth 1,000 words. A video is worth even more. And so I want to play it, take a look at it, see the reactions on their face. We're going to listen to a little bit of questioning, but to me, if that's where my mind is and I see this video, my blood is starting to boil as a juror. And Daybell and Pryor's only argument is basically he didn't know at this point. He was just trusting Lori like everybody else was, that they were fine.
Hi. Yeah. Reach that in, Lord. It's about even, sir. You have any questions regarding that?
Are you Chad and Lori? You've properly been served. There they are, literally in their bathing suits, laying by the pool. Again, nothing wrong with bikinis or bathing suits or anything like that. But the point is, that's a lot of what this was about. And this is where they find them in Hawaii when the kids have passed and they are lying to everybody about it. There's more. We're going to get to the search of the car. But what is this? I mean, what do you think when you see this if you're a juror?
So it is 14:39 hours on January 24th.
They both take a look at it, try to read it. And that's it. They had no questions. They weren't
did you
like,
have any
what are you
further
talking about? My son is with my friend, or my son is with his grandma or aunt, or my son is in the room taking a nap. Nothing like that. Just almost no reaction, chilling at the pool. Then we get to the search of the car, which was also in Hawaii. And there's a bunch of pictures that this guy took and he was there for. Front, center, back of the car. And I want you to listen to some of what he found. Again, remember the state's theory and story that they're telling.
Exhibit 234B.
It's an initial view of the front door driver's side, and Lori Vallow's purse on the seat.
And on cross, one of Pryor's big points with this guy was he didn't find any evidence in the passenger seat, right? It was almost like he was trying to give a metaphor. It's like Lori was driving, right? She was driving this bus. She was the leader. It was her car. All the evidence you found was in her stuff, not in Chad's seat, who was sitting in the front passenger seat. That was about what he could get out of this.
And 234C.
Close up of the same.
I'd like to pause here for a moment and ask, did you find anything of evidentiary value in Lori Vallow's purse while you were searching Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow's rental vehicle?
Yes,
Can you tell me what that is?
from the purse.
Yes, sir.
There was a cell phone in the side pocket, and there was a debit card with I think it was a BBVA Compass debit card with the name of Tyler Ryan on it.
So what's she got in her purse? A debit card with Tyler Ryan's name on it. What's this case about? Sex, power, and money. All the different ways they could get money. Life insurance, Social Security payments, and spend less of it so they could keep more. Spend less on other people.
Can you tell me what's depicted in 234D?
That's the door jamb on the driver's side between the driver's seat and the door jamb on the floor, and that's a credit card or the debit card.
234E.
That's the debit card with Tyler Ryan.
234F.
The back of the same debit card.
Thank you. Can you tell me what we're looking at in 234G?
That's the cell phone that was in the side pocket of her purse.
What was done with that cell phone after the execution of that search warrant?
All those items were shipped back to Rexburg.
So later we see that he also found laptops and iPads, and all of that stuff was sent back to Rexburg. And we've heard about a lot of the analysis that was done on those items.
Next, we're going to look at 234H.
That's the passenger side rear door initial view, and a bag on the floorboard, and then a couple bicycles in the cargo area.
They were adult bicycles. I'm going to go to the trunk here.
Rear cargo area with suitcase, a JanSport backpack, and a couple bicycles.
234K.
That's a Hawaii Robin Ruth handbag.
And is this the same handbag that we saw a couple photos ago on the rear passenger floorboard?
Yes, that's correct.
And did you determine what the contents of that bag were?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And then what are we seeing here in 234L?
That's overall of some of the contents that were in the bag.
Okay. Can you kind of describe what we're looking at here?
Yeah, there's in this one there's two Apple laptops or iPads, a manila envelope, and a folder, and a Visions of Glory book.
Okay. 234M.
That's one of the iPads.
And again, I
that's
don't
one of them.
know, but usually iPads that have that type of a case are for kids. I don't know that that's a fact here, but I'll just say from experience, that looks like a kid's iPad.
One of the iPads.
234N.
The second iPad.
Okay.
Similar. The first one was more obvious.
JJ written in red, or iPad in a black OtterBox.
And what do we
And then there's another iPad that has JJ written on it. So what do you think that means?
see on the back of that iPad?
JJ written in red.
234P.
That's the other side of the iPad.
And that would be the other side of the iPad with the initials JJ on the back.
Yes, ma'am.
And let me know if you need me to zoom in here, but what are we looking at in 234Q?
That is that certificate for Leland Charles Anthony Vallow.
Do you recall
So then she had Charles Vallow's death certificate, and I think she has like 15 of them or something he's about to testify to, which is so weird.
how many copies of death certificates there were for Charles Vallow?
I believe there were 14 in this packet, and then there was 3 in another packet, so a total of 17.
Did that seem strange to you?
It's a lot, but
And what else are we looking
Definitely
at over
strange.
here on the right-hand side?
that's a real estate paper for the condo unit that they were renting.
234R.
There's I believe at the top left-hand corner is a life birth certificate for Kylie Ryan, and I can't really see the bottom one.
Basically, all the stuff you'd need for the kids. It's basically what this is. So security cards, everything you'd need for the kids.
The bottom one. It's a little blurry here. Are you able to discern that, or do I need to, I could have it handed to you as well?
Yeah, I can do that.
We just hand him this and just for the record of 234R
It's a birth certificate.
for who? If you're able to read that.
Honestly, I can't read it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it possible that it could be a death? Move past 234R, sir, or S? See, maybe we'll turn it this way. Can you tell me what that is?
Yes, certification of birth from the state of Louisiana for Trey and Kanan Todd.
234T.
Blue Sky Property Management document,
Does this document indicate where that property was located?
Rexburg, Idaho. Judge, again, can I have a recite which example? Chad Daybell.
Can you tell me what this is?
That's a letter from Chad Daybell, from Chad Daybell to Alexander Cox,
Okay. What's the date on there?
November 24th, 2019.
And what is the title under that date?
Patriarch Chad Daybell.
This was also
A letter to Alex Cox from Chad Daybell, the patriarch.
found in the blue bag on the passenger side.
And this is somebody he was really scared of, definitely not working with, definitely not somebody that's a co-conspirator, yet he's writing him letters like this right around that time. So again, just destroying the defense with actual physical evidence in the car that they were found in.
Side of the vehicle.
Yes, ma'am.
The prosecutor could have been like, if she wanted to be snarky and respond to John Pryor, been like, any letters written by Lori Vallow to Alex Cox? No, just Chad Daybell was the one writing Alex Cox letters, right?
Can you tell me what that is?
It's a JanSport black backpack that was found in the rear cargo area by the bicycles.
We're going to go a little out of order here. 234X.
So patient summary with sticky notes on top.
And
I couldn't read what these said on the video, so maybe some of you guys know what they say. It sounds like it might be something significant based on this next question.
do the words on those sticky notes have any significance to you?
I don't know what any of that means.
Okay. I'm going to leave it up here for a moment so the jurors can look at those sticky notes and see the words on there. Okay. Getting close to the end here. 234Y. What are these?
A silver MacBook Pro and a HP laptop.
Okay. And were those also found in the black JanSport backpack?
Yes.
All right. What's this? I'm sorry, let me read you the exhibit number. 234Z.
I believe it's the other side of the black currency
Where was that found?
in the
What is that?
envelope with US currency
Where was that found?
in the backpack.
How much US currency is in there
All total, there was 10,500.
in cash?
Yes.
So what was this case about? Power, sex, and money. $10,500 of cash.
When a search warrant was executed on the condo complex.
So
that
then
it
he
was-
also was there when they searched the condo. What did they find significant in the condo?
staying.
Yes, I was.
Did you find anything of evidentiary value in that condo complex?
Yes, I did.
And let me back up just a little bit. What date was that search warrant executed?
That was condo complex. It was the 26th of January, 2020.
Okay. And did you find anything of evidentiary value?
Yes, I did.
What was that?
There was a couple rubber type wedding bands, and I don't recall what else. I believe there was only about three items taken.
When you were searching the condo complex, was there any sign that children were living there?
No, ma'am.
Was there any sign that children had ever been there?
No.
I have no further questions for this witness.
They were doing it. They were living their best life. They had accomplished their plans and their goals. They had gotten rid of all of the obstacles, and it was just them, their wedding bands, their bathing suits, the pool, the sun in Hawaii. No children, no pets, no problem. No sign of children where they were living, that were living there or had ever been there. That's the impression in this jury's mind. And I thought that was powerful. The way I look at this case, the context and the circumstances and the full picture start to point to there's no other answer. And I mean, at the very best, how the heck would Chad Daybell not have known what was going on? If he really was in the dark and, Alex Cox and Lori Vallow had this master plan. I find that hard to believe. But maybe I'm wrong. You guys let me know in the comments. I think the state, from what I've seen in this case, getting real close to being done proving all of it by the burden that they need to beyond all reasonable doubt. But we're not going to make up our mind yet because there's still more to come. The defense still has the opportunity to put on their case, but the state is building, to say the least, in this case. And I just thought that was powerful today. I mean, it's kind of simple evidence, but it shows and connects the dots, right? And puts the puzzle together of exactly what's going on here, and how Chad Daybell is involved, because it's all coming up good for Chad Daybell until it wasn't. So let me know what you guys' questions are and comments in the comment section. Hit that like button if you haven't already. If you're still watching this trial every day, let me know in the comments as well. We're going to continue doing our updates from time to time on it, a couple times a week. If you guys want it, we're going to bring it. So just always let me know what content you all want. But for this video, that's all we got. Until next time, I am out of here. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And don't forget to check out the Lawyer You Know podcast with new seasons dropping every quarter. If you have a case you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, The Lawyer You Know.